Welcome everybody to the full council of North Norfolk District Council on Wednesday, the 25th of September. Lovely to see you all. Lovely to see you all. Lauren, do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. We received a few apologies. We've received apologies from Councillor Don Birch, Councillor Harry Blathwaite, Councillor Sarah Butakofa, Councillor Tom Fitzpatrick, Councillor Mike Hankins, Councillor Colin Hynink, Councillor Nigel Housden, Councillor Luke Patterson, Councillor Callum Ringer, Councillor John Toy and Councillor Eric Vardy.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we need to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of July. Does anybody have any points of accuracy? There is one of which I'm aware, which is that Councillor Leith's name wasn't down, but she was actually present. So will we correct that, Lauren?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any comments otherwise? Councillor Shires.
It's just a spelling mistake on page 7 of Councillor Boyle's surname.
Good catch. You get a job as a copy editor any day. Does anybody have? Sorry? I totally agree. It's a wonderful one, an L does, isn't it? Does anyone have any other comments as to accuracy? Or can we take these as correct? Would anyone like to propose? Okay. Lauren, we have proposers. Councillor Adams and Councillor Second. Councillor Varley. Thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest from members? No? Okay, thank you very much. Right, Chairman's communications. I must thank Kay for doing an absolutely fantastic job on these. She's worked very hard to get it looking so beautiful. Lovely. So if we could go to the next slide. So I just wanted to quickly talk about my theme for this year, which is dementia. And I've visited some fantastic dementia cafes and groups run by the most wonderful volunteers and realised how lucky we are to have so many people in North Norfolk looking after our residents with dementia and their carers. And so far I've been to the Cameo Cafe in North Walsham, the Nurture Project in Kettleston, so ... in South Reps, and we have Dirk here to talk about that just now. The Wensum Cafe at Fakenham Leisure Centre, the Sunshine Cafe at Stalham Green Surgery, the Poppy Centre in Holt, Making Connections in Hoverton, the Memory Lane Cafe in Munsley, Creek Encounters in South Creek, which is very popular with our Western residents, Glaven Caring in Blakeney, and I've still got to visit quite a few. So I'm hoping if I've missed out on any that in your patch that I haven't seen, do let me know. So then shall we move on to the events? So I went to one of our fantastic positivity events in Fakenham run by our community connectors, and I really would encourage you to go to any if you haven't, and they're in your patch. They're on different topics and they're an absolute fount of information, brilliant for network and information gathering. So I went to the civic service in Dereham, and it's one of the great medieval churches in England, rather underknown, I think. Dereham Church is absolutely beautiful. And we had an opportunity afterwards to meet the Dereham town councillors and hear about the wonderful work they do. It's a very nice community there. And the Scouts is such an impressive organisation, of which our CEO is a part. And I must say the AGM was very interesting. It was a real pleasure to meet such dedicated volunteers. And by the way, they're looking for more volunteers if anybody's interested. And you don't have to do whittling or tie knots or anything. You could be in the background and do IT or wash socks. I mean, they really have a very wide range of need if anybody's interested. I went to a talk in King's Lynn about the Gloucester 1682 thinking, which was, I must say that lecturer from the UEA who gave it was absolutely mesmerizing. And if she'd been my history teacher, I would have taken a history course instead of medicine. It was a really interesting talk. And if no one knows the story, which you should by now, it's really fascinating. Then I went to the Battle of Britain commemoration at Halsey House, which was very moving. And it was a real honor to speak with so many ex-servicemen and women to whom we owe our freedom. And so that was a very nice event. And then tea in the grounds of Wisbech Castle was pretty special. And you'd be very glad to know that I'm not showing any photographs of my dog and dad dancing to the rock choir, because they were a bit probably not for public consumption. Anyway, Wisbech Castle is another building that's got an amazing history. I went to the institution induction of the Reverend Sally Miles last night, and that was very interesting. And she's going to be a great addition to the community, really smashing. And now we're going to hear from Dirk Geary, who's the founder of the South Reps group, So ... which helps younger people diagnosed with dementia. And this is going to be one of my chairman's charities. I'm going to have a group of very local charities as my chairman's charities this year, rather than one of the national ones, because I wanted to really reach out into our community. And So ... is going to be one of them.
Good evening, everyone. Right, my name's Dirk Geary. I'll give you a background to my charity. I was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's 4 years ago now. Just right bang in the middle of COVID, which was really nice. But what happens when you go through a diagnosis of dementia is, first of all, you have to fight your way past the GP, usually. It's a little bit hit and miss which surgery you're in, whether you get referred straight away or not. Once you then get referred, I mean, at the moment, there's a 9-month waiting list for referrals. Just to put that into perspective, the number of referrals 4 years ago has multiplied by nearly 2.5 times in the present day. Yet the memory services and stuff are still working on the same budget, so the waiting list is getting longer. So you get referred, you see a nice clinical psychiatrist or a psychologist, depending which avenue you go down. You take a number of memory tests and they talk to you for copious amounts of hours. They usually send you off for an MRI, which is another couple of months wait. And then they come back and speak to you again, and they go through some more tests and talk to you again, and then they'll give you a formal diagnosis. At this point, they walk out the door, wave goodbye, and that's it. Once you get diagnosed, there's nothing afterwards. That's it. You just get diagnosed and off you go. So a similar thing happened to myself. You spend a day or two in shock, but I decided that there's other people out there in my position. There's other people out there that have been in my position for probably 1 or 2 years. So with a little bit of a help from the EDP and 1 or 2 things, we started a support group. And basically, the idea of the support group is you come along, there's people there to talk to. It's for the person that's diagnosed and it's for their carer partner. Both of them have different needs. And we will talk through problems, because everybody's had not everybody, but somebody's had that problem and have found a way of coping with it. We signpost them to services like the community connectors at North Norfolk, the financial inclusion officers, and people like that, because early onset means you're diagnosed before 65. If you're diagnosed after 65, it's just early stages. There's no difference. It's just a term of reference for the medical profession. And then, so we signpost, we give aid, and we give them tea and biscuits, shoulder to cry on. And we help in every way that we can. because there's nothing out there for anyone. There's some very good dementia cafes, Cameo Caf, all these sort of people, but they're for people with dementia a little bit further down the line. They're more a respite for the carer than they are a support group for the actual people, carer and thing. We run courses for carers so they can learn about dementia, learn about the different problems of people with somebody like me. And what you've got to remember, dementia is not just about forgetting anything. I present normally. I do forget things. I present normally, but I have a lot of personality changes that have happened in the last 4 years. I've never had a lot of tolerance, but I haven't got any now, and things like that, which the carer has to put up with, and they're under more strain than the person that's been diagnosed. So we do base heavily a lot of our work on caring for carers, making sure they've got access to materials and training and things like that. And we run our main support group in South Reps. This costs us well over £1,000 a year to run. So we're always looking for finance, but the charity is now in a position where we are just starting to grow, and we're actually going to start looking to employ people because volunteers can only do so much, and we now need, IT and media and these sort of people. So that's really the history of the group so far, and if that's educational enough, I think I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. That's really helpful.
Thank you.
So thank you very much indeed. So we'll be launching the Chairman's Charities next week at our 50th birthday tea party. So thank you. Are there any leaders' announcements?
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to welcome and congratulate Councillor Malgray and thank you and of course the other candidates who gave their time to take part in the democratic process, and certainly also to our officers for administering another election. We have once again received the coveted Golden Paw Print Award in recognition of the level of service provided around stray dogs. So well done to the team, but particularly to Mark Gardner, the dog warden, for this achievement. Yeah, have a look at the video that we posted previously. Great guy, and wonderful service that we provided, reuniting people with their dogs, and of course it's something we share with the other local authorities, and it's been going extremely well. As per my introduction at the last meeting in respect of Benjamin Court and our representation to the Secretary of State of Health and Social Care, we did subsequently receive a response, albeit a disappointing one, which wouldn't commit to anything, despite the government saying elsewhere they would seek to support community settings to draw pressure away from acute hospitals. So we now await the Health Watch report, which will be hopefully published on Friday, and we'll discuss that around the council and possibly respond. We've received correspondence very recently in respect of the future banking provision in Fakenham and North Walsham. We'll be looking to meet representatives from Cash Access UK in due course to discuss our further support of this. Beyond the work we've obviously already undertaken, largely in respect of Holt, I should say, around the provision of data to support the nomination there. Wanted to also just give a brief update on the Rocket House. The Bailey has now been removed following a fantastic collaboration between the RNI locally, nationally, ourselves, skilled trades and the community, and grateful to all of them. And it's a 20-ton vessel that hasn't left that building in 2 decades, and so impressed with the work of contractors, particularly those who removed and reinstalled the doors on the front. I thought that was quite a feat to do that, 2 hours both ways. It didn't look like an hour's job to me, certainly. And it just shows you the sort of level of skill we've got, really. around the country to do that sort of thing. So main contractors have now been appointed following quotes and tenders, and the toilets will close in November for the works. Planning applications will follow, but very grateful to the estate's staff members for their work there. In respect of our consideration over public toilet provision, our next steps are the meetings with interested parties, both businesses and organisations, to assist us in determining next steps. The consideration will also go to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee before decisions are made. And so just to clarify, we're not ratifying the individual closure of any location tonight. We put the consideration on the table, and we will, alongside other things that will be coming forward to meet the budget pressures that we face, largely due to the pressures with temporary accommodation, inflation, interest rate rises, etc. So we know where we are. It's a difficult conversation, but those are the next steps with that. That's probably all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any public questions?
None received.
Right, we move on to portfolio reports. So we've got 30 minutes. And would any member who would like to ask a question raise his hand? Put her name up, hand up first.
Thank you. Yes, I've got a question for Councillor Fredericks. Your report details the welfare benefits that the financial inclusion team have found for our residents. And I wondered if you could explain a little more about what these benefits are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So the financial inclusion team, for those that don't know, have been set up to advise and manage and suggest different ways to uplift income for low-income families. At present, we're showing that nearly £1 million has been found for our residents and our neighbours in uplift to their income with benefits. So some of these that have been awarded, I've got a list here. Carers allowance, council tax support, disability living allowance, discretionary housing payments. We also are part of the Eden Red Argos voucher scheme, employment and support allowance, job seekers allowance, energy bank vouchers, household support fund. We actually received 69,000 of that funding to last the whole year up until next March. We've spent £54,000 on that. Apparently that's going to be extended, but we haven't had any further news on that. So we're looking at housing benefit, pension credit. Again, we've identified 164 pensioners, households that are eligible for pension credit. So we are phoning those people and supporting them to fill in those pension credit forms. On that subject, our community connectors are taking leaflets out to community groups. We're advertising on social media. We're doing website launches on that as well. And I sent a leaflet around to every ward member about pension credit. I'll send it around again, because I know that everyone gets lots of emails so that they can get supported. So yes, the financial inclusion team have been fantastic. They're a non-statutory team, but I'm incredibly proud of their work. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, it does seem a good way forward with their problems are our problems,
Yeah.
and this is a really basic and sensible approach to bring more money in to support people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fletcher.
Oh, sorry, I do beg your pardon. Oh, Lord, sorry. Um, I'll never learn how to do that. Sorry, a question for Councillor Varley. What are the next steps towards office decarbonisation? Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. I did hear you have a fantastic booming voice. Anyway, that's a rather good question. So surveys have now been undertaken on the Chroma office. There is a report, and that report now will come forward to Cabinet, as is right. We will go through that process of discussing all the options. There's quite a list of varying options to address the energy efficiency of this office building, and that focuses on heating systems and fabric measures as well. It also focuses on behaviour changes, so how we actually use this office space. So hot desking, for example. So we do need to go through all of these options. The measures will ensure greater energy efficiency, but most importantly, it will save running costs in the long run. So the heating and electricity costs will be saved through the measures which are embedded in the office. Obviously, this will come at a cost. Depending on what options from that report are taken forward will depend on the overall cost. But what we will be doing is looking into external funding to reach those costs for the energy efficiency measures. And we will be putting in an application for the Public Sector Decarbonisation Fund. Thank you.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, Councillor Varley, it's another question to you. Very similar question to the councillor. Could you give us an update on your Net Zero Communities projects update? And a supplementary question, if I may. You say in your report that you contacted businesses across the area. Could you give us more details on what businesses you've contacted and the amounts of you've contacted? Because in both our wards, we do have a lot of businesses, especially to do with sailing and what have you. Have you contacted some of those, please?
Thank you for your questions. 2 questions, Councillor. Can I just confirm, are you referring to the Stalham Communities project? Yeah. So that's actually going rather well. We've hosted a few events now with Stalham Town Council, and Hubbub are doing ongoing consultancy with the community, and it's going down really well. So what I can do is I can speak with them and give you and other members a more coherent update on that. But it is going down really well with the community. And it's such a fantastic initiative because it's all about grassroots communities, tackling climate change and striving towards net zero living. So, the fantastic work we've done already in Stalham with energy efficiency measures, fabric first measures, something which is actually really going to benefit households and wider communities. So I'm more than happy to give you a more substantial written update on that project. And in regards of your other question, do forgive me, I don't go around with lots of information of all the businesses we've contacted. So I will go away and I will update you via written statement. Thank you.
Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was going to ask this of Councillor Toy, but in his absence, I'll pick on Councillor Adams, if I may. I was interested in the report that you submitted about the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the Rural England Fund, Prosperity Fund. What are the outcomes that these are funding allocations are delivering? And are we confident that the district is getting value for money?
Okay, lots of individual actions, lots of individual, recipients of funding. So it's difficult to give you one answer. So I think maybe might be best if come back to you with some further detail, wanting to facilitate that. I think more generally, we want to make the absolute best of any sort of funding provisions from any direction. And I think it's been recognised so far that we've tried to do it here. We've made it really good work of getting it distributed, supporting a number of businesses and organisations, and we'll obviously make we'll do the same thing with any other opportunities we have. And my hope is that is distributed across the district. We've in that case, it was obviously quite a generalised funding opportunity. So I think maybe we can get back to you with some more detail on the individual outcomes in respect of that, and I hope that's sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you. I do think it's important because obviously the council received a lot of funding on that regard to those individual projects. And I think it's important for us to see actually how that was spent and really what we got in terms of outcomes. I don't know whether that's actually going to go maybe in scrutiny or somewhere that we can see something on that.
Not something I can confirm. So
I'll leave that one with you.
We can certainly have a look at putting it to avian scrutiny if it's the wish of the committee. So general rules apply on that. So I don't see anything necessarily wrong in having a discussion there, or indeed a break.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, everybody. I have a question for Councillor Shires in respect of finance, estates and assets, and it's on behalf of Overstrand Parish Council. I have to detail on behalf of them, both linked to health and safety of the visiting public. Firstly, is it Lib Dem policy to charge for saving lives? Overstrand Parish Council has asked to position a defibrillator on the NNDC-owned railings on the slipway down to the beach. With presumably your authority, our property department are insisting to levy a charge for this, unlike others, including such as the Whitehorse Public House and public toilets.
Your presumption's incorrect. That is not something that I've asked them to do. I'm happy to go back to property services and work with the parish council to see if we can find a different solution on that.
Councillor Gray.
So, question for Councillor Adams, if you don't mind. Given yesterday's county council meeting, could you update us on the devolution deal for Norfolk and what the impact of this will be for North Norfolk?
Thank you, Councillor Gray. There's no new news I can provide you that the council is not aware of following yesterday. It's our wish to see a cross-county consensus on the basis for a devolution arrangement, and we need to, I believe, set out our stall as soon as possible to the government. The discussions yesterday at County Hall were disheartening, to say the least. We do need to pull together around a common position. In terms of our aspirations, the councils across the county, I believe, have much more in common than divides us. I have absolute respect for the counterparts, our counterparts in other authorities, and have voiced our willing to support further discussions. I think in respect of North Norfolk, or you could say, what about Norwich? What about Breckland? Yeah, there will possibly be some different asks across the county. And of course, you could ask much more than you would realistically get. However, I think the prize for North Norfolk is probably around development of rural transport. It's, we know we've got these areas like Holt, Melton, Constable, etc., that are poorly connected. It's the same in the east of the district, but they are linked to economic inactivity and very strongly in some of those locations. And you can look at Norwich and say, well, yes, they've got a lot of brownfield sites. They will want lots of brownfield funding, but actually we're not a big way apart. There'll obviously be lots of discussions on a political level about whether it's a Norfolk-Suffolk arrangement, whether we're looking at something different in terms of Norfolk. But my hope is that we will continue to do what we had been doing, which was actually, I think, as a group of leaders, the county council leader included, working very well together across party lines. I don't think you would see the differences politically if you're a fly on the wall. So let's hope we can get back to that and present our case to the government as soon as possible, and that the government progress something for the good of the whole of the county as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Beattie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is for Councillor Brown. The government's now stating that it wants to build more and more houses. How is that going to affect us predictively in this area, as in number-wise?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Councillor Beattie, for your question. When we submitted our local plan, which confirmed the numbers we were expecting to build annually at approximately 480 dwellings per annum, which we voted through with only one abstention as a council in April last year. We were confident at that point that our due diligence and our numbers were accurate. We have now had an examination, as you know, in March by the inspector, and he has pointed out to us that the standard methodology for calculating that 480 per annum should have been by reference to using the 2014 population census, which is what the government dictate. We challenged that because there were later census statistics that suggested that our population was in actual fact falling compared to 2014. So the inspector came back to us in March, well, in just after the general election. Actually, his response was delayed because of the general election. And he suggested that using the earlier statistics in 2014 as compared to the later ones that we used, that our numbers should increase from 480 dwellings per annum to 557. And then we had a general election. And then the Deputy Prime Minister announced in a very quick time that she wanted to increase the annual national target from 300,000 dwellings to 370,000 dwellings, or to put it another way, 1.5 million dwellings across the current term of the current Parliament. So the inspector has come back to us now and has suggested that our numbers should almost double. So from 557 to 943, I think it is. So we accept that the inspector is correct in his approach to numbers given the situation with the new government. And in correcting himself, we are now prepared to work with the inspector, and a report is being prepared which will come to the Planning Policy Built Heritage Working Party for public scrutiny on the 10th of October as to how we're going to address the issue of increasing our numbers from 557 dwellings to 943. So all will be revealed before too long, Councillor Beattie. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Brown, much appreciated, but I'm quite shocked by the sheer numbers they're looking at.
not as shocked as me.
Councillor Taylor?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have a question for Councillor Withington, the Cabinet Member for Tourism and Leisure. So I was rather disappointed that following the success this weekend of the first Stalham and Smallborough Beer Festival, that this event was not listed in your report. We now in Stalham have our annual Fringe Festival, Yuletide Market, Antique Fair, Artisan Street Fair, annual Fun Day for the children, and of course now the annual Beer Festival. So would the Cabinet Member agree with me that Stalham must now be the undisputed champion of North Norfolk events, and join me in thanking the men and women in Stalham for their tireless hard work in setting up and supporting these community events? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I'm sorry, I'm croaky. Congratulations, Stalham. You obviously had a wonderful weekend. I would hate it to be a competition because I think 40,000 people in Sheringham for the 40th weekend, we might be in a slightly better position. However, it isn't a competition. I'm really pleased that these events are starting to happen in Stalham. Can I please ask that you get the information through to our team so that we can support you in that, on getting it onto websites and getting it into our information trail? That would be really wonderful to hear those things. And of course, I'm more than happy to come out and be part of them.
Have I missed anybody? Because Councillor Penfold? Anybody else?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It isn't a competition about community events, but can I just raise you the Worstead Festival? The biggest village festival in Britain, no less. So there. My question is to Councillor Withington again, if I may. We have a number of NNDC green spaces, 3 of which are green flag spaces. Can Councillor Withington tell me, please, what the council is doing to encourage young people and families to engage with these, to be more active in them, and how we are making them more aware of the special environments we manage? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Penfold, for your question. First of all, I have to say that I'm really proud that we've retained the green flag spaces this year, and a lot of work goes into that behind the scenes, because they're not awards that you just get for a certain criteria. You have to make year-on-year improvements. So it's really fabulous that the small countryside team and the leisure team are managing to achieve that. And one of the things they've been doing actually is running events over the summer, and they are growing year on year. They've had some fabulous ones this summer, from Mini Beast collecting and identifying and holding, and some which I wouldn't want to touch, but never mind, the kids have all enjoyed it. There's been orienteering and some fantastic challenge days with den building and exciting things like that, which I'm sure some of the big children in here would also like to do. And we're getting ready for Halloween now with fancy dress trails and monster hunts. They're all really important in getting children into our active spaces and helping them to get involved and connect with nature. But they're also important revenue earners for us as well. So they bring revenue in. Recently, we started working with the YAB, the Youth Advisory Board, and we're hoping to bring forward a project that's a hands-on project with young people doing conservation and environmental work in our green spaces, which will be really good. And also Muddy Boots volunteers. That's taken off really well, and we're now partnering, put the teeth back in, partnering with local schools on that as well. So we've got some young people coming involved, and if all those volunteering activities, etc., and activities are all on the website. So please encourage your communities to take part, because they're across the district.
Thank you very much. That was great. And at some point, it'd be good to explore adult learning as well, and what we're doing to get adults active. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bayes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for Councillor Shires. I note the continued generosity earmarked for Cromer in this year's capital programme. Examples include a rocket house, 3G pictures, etc., totaling a 2,256,000. However, when reviewing the other schemes on the list, I cannot see anything for any of the parishes east of North Walsham. This clearly is favouritism for Cromer, which receives a huge slice of funding cake Why do we not have any interest in helping areas east of North Walsham?
Thank you very much. I'm not sure that any of you would really like to have had the issue that has been the Rocket House in your wards. That isn't something that we're funding because we are funding for anything else other than necessity. When we look at Cromer, which is often pointed out when we do capital bids for Cromer, we focus there because we have a really large number of assets. Some of them are not assets that we have purchased, they're assets that we inherited. Over towards the east, we really just don't own as much stuff. But that said, that doesn't mean that if somebody has got a fantastic capital idea, that I wouldn't want to hear about it. So if anybody has got an amazing idea in their wards, we have previous years asked for suggestions, because when we're allowed to apply for grants when they're available, we would welcome working with everybody in this chamber to apply for what we need that's best for their wards.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. I look forward to hearing some of those suggestions.
Okay, who else has got a question that we haven't yet captured? Councillor Toy?
Hello, this is a question for Councillor Fredericks. I notice in your report that the number of people in temporary accommodations has gone down. Can you explain that situation, please?
Thank you, Councillor Toy. I'm delighted that the number of people in temporary accommodation has gone down compared to last year. And the factors are that our prevention team have done a sterling job together with our customer services, our housing options team, our social prescribers. They're all supporting residents to stay maybe where they are. There's a lot of rent increases at the moment, so the financial inclusion are helping to raise their benefits and help them to raise their incomes. Also, we have looked at our allocations policy. That is out for consultation at the moment, I believe, and coming to council shortly with the results on that. So we're working hard with our partners to fill any empty voids at the moment. So it's been really, really helpful, and we're working hard. So I'm glad about that. I would put a word of caution on it, because even though Section 21 coming to an end is a good thing, with landlords, it's going to be quite another blow to them, because they may not feel that that's appropriate for them and their tenants or their business. So it's a word of caution that this might only be a temporary thing. We just have to prepare ourselves that there may be more coming.
Thank you.
We've got a couple of minutes left. Anybody else wants to ask any questions? No? You're all questioned out? Very good. Thank you very much, everybody. Sorry. Now we move on to item number 9, the review of political balance and the allocation of seats to committees, subcommittees, working parties and panels. So, Tim, would you like to walk us through this?
Yeah, obviously, the report is as read. Thank you for the officer attention in putting it together. And obviously there's little change there. I did just have the added change to the membership of an outside working group, though, and that is the Records Committee, and that is just to appoint a substitute, and that will be Councillor Martin Beatty. So I did not manage to get time to inform officers of that before we've made that change. So that was the only other thing to add further to that, and obviously note the no changes. Thank you.
Okay, so the recommendations are that we approve the revised political balance calculation and that we approve the allocation of seats to political groups as shown in Appendix A. So we need a proposer.
And I'm happy to propose.
Okay, and a seconder? You got a seconder? Lovely. And can we take a vote on that, please? Unanimous? Yeah, thank you very much. So now we move on to item 10, which is recommendations from Cabinet from the 9th of September. So, Councillor Adams, that's you again.
Yes, of course. So there is a change to make in respect of, yes, recommendation for it reads 2 on here. This is in respect of the budget monitoring period 4. So that should in fact read the council seek approval of full council to include an addition to the capital programme for 24-25 for the extension of some car parking in the district, and that this is funded from revenue car parking income as explained in paragraph 5.6. So we are looking at other options there besides the Meadow car park. The first item is as read, and as I covered in the introductory statement, the resolution there, the recommendation does not ratify the individual closure of an individual facility, and you're aware of our next steps in terms of talking to businesses, organisations, and learning more before we consider the future there. And obviously there's more to deal with in terms of budgetary savings. So besides that one change, recognise the recommendations and propose them for approval. Thank you.
Councillor Shires?
Yes, I will obviously second the recommendations. I just wanted to add a little bit more about the budget monitoring for period 4. At this point, I want to offer my thanks to Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and that is in monitoring the savings that I requested when I set this budget, and we agreed it back in February. So I understand that often there's a lot of information here, so I just wanted to point members to the bits that for me are the most important. I am going to look to my colleague, Councillor Fredericks, again, as I always do when it comes to the budget at the moment, and I apologise for that. And that is the reason that we've brought the motion later on in the meeting. The large proportion, again, is our response to temporary accommodation. And thanks to Councillor Fredericks and the team for everything that they're doing there. If you turn to page 69, which is 2.6 to 2.9, it will explain the variations as outlined that project the deficit by year end. Officers are and have been working extremely hard to keep us on track and will continue to do so throughout the budget monitoring process without losing sight on the next budget, which we'll be setting for the next financial year. The savings are monitored on page 77 because I want us all to keep a close eye on where we are to make sure that we're all on track, but also for us not to lose sight of the savings that we are making and the work that officers are doing. As Councillor Mancini-Boyle asked at the last meeting, if I remember correctly, about the savings yet to be identified when we set the budget, you'll find the list of those on page 81. We do have a small sum to find, but I'm confident in our officer team that we'll find them before the end of year. And obviously, as inflation rates come down, that too will have an impact on the interest that we pay and the money that we make from our investment. And that is detailed on page 58 under point 4. And as to the subsequent part of that, just to reiterate, Councillor Adams has mentioned twice now, this is not a ratification, it's our start of the conversation. And as portfolio holder, I have always pledged that I will be as transparent as I can possibly be every step of the way. So that is me saying we are not making a decision, we're just opening the conversation. And it's not just these specific assets. If anybody in the district has got an urge to support our public toilets. We would welcome any conversations, not just today, but in the coming months and years, to ensure that we can try and keep these public services open.
Thank you. I'm conscious that Councillor Taylor wants to ask a question, but I just wanted to ask, do we need to change the wording then of option 1 for the saving public conveniences?
Yes, we do.
Because it's not clear at the moment. It sounds definitely as if it's going to happen. So do we need to, this is,
Just to clarify, it's just a simple copy and pasting error. So it's not the recommendation we approved at Cabinet. So the correct one is, as I read, that we were looking at
Okay, so-
more generalised options across the district. Thank you.
is that clear enough for everyone to vote on?
I think so.
Okay, fine. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a very quick question. Councillor Adams, what are the other options that you're looking at for car park extension? Can you share that with us?
Well, no, not really at this time, but I think we want to consider the most advantageous options around car parking income, revenue, but also accepting that there are constraints at that site. We've got to weigh up. It will still be included as a consideration. It was in the last budgetary considerations, if you recall. Not an easy one for Chrome to consider because it is obviously it's been considered open space for some time. It's not something that many people will welcome. It's a very busy car park. We've got to look across our property portfolio. I think the other thing to mention with that part of Cromer is that we've seen a new car park in the last year, private sector. So there's certainly, I think, a demand for more car parking in the town. We've got a huge parking provision over to the west. It's the biggest car park in the district, Runton Road. And in the central area, still quite a lot of demand. So we've got to weigh up some more options, but it is our intention to deliver an increased quantum of car parking spaces and therefore an increased amount of revenue.
But so the idea that is like Cromer focus, it's Cromer centric. It will probably be around that area instead of.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we'll weigh up other options, but we'll come forth in due course to sort of talk about the potential. We've got to stretch our property portfolio in some cases to try and make sure it's not just about car parking. You know, obviously we're looking at concessions. Lucy and I have been having lots of conversations over the last week and about places where we do have that extraordinarily high footfall, like the promenade, etc. in Cromer. We've got to try and make everything work for itself. In some of these locations, the assets are constraints as much as they're assets in that we have to spend an awful lot of money maintaining them. Car parking revenue is supporting the provision of our tourism related infrastructure locations like the pier, and it has done for a long time. So it's right that we seek to try and grow that, especially where there is demand, to continue to resource that and potentially, you know, support future efforts as well. But we will obviously bring forth discussions. It will be in the planning process as well. So there's lots of rounds of consultation with such a proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cushing, did you have a question?
Yes, just a statement. As Councillor Shah has mentioned, this was discussed the budget was discussed at length and over in scrutiny last week. So if anyone's watching us on YouTube and just wondering why we're not asking questions on it, we have done it, but some of us have actually seen it 3 times. So I think we have gone through that with detail. I do have a question, though, if I may, on the item 12, which is on the proposed closing or transferring responsibility for some of the public conveniences. This is something that deeply concerns our group. It may not be a statutory requirement to provide those facilities, but we certainly believe it's a high priority, given that the tourist economy is effectively sort of underpins the North Norfolk district. So the question I would have for the administration is actually, has any impact assessment been undertaken so far on the proposals that they've outlined in the cabinet meeting for closures or transfers?
Okay, so I think our focus in terms of the considerations has been the facilities that have seen the smallest levels of usage. And in some of those facilities, it's not really an exaggeration to say we're sweeping the leaves out. You know, they're very low levels of usage. That's not the case in Weybourne, where we're seeing high levels of abuse of the facility, and it is extraordinarily expensive and time consuming, staff resources, etc. staff time. I do want to see a toilet provision in Stalham. We've obviously talked about this. The issue is certainly in the wrong location, and it's seeing low levels of usage. We obviously have a fair degree of knowledge of this in that we're doing the cleansing. So we also see the maintenance costs and how they vary. You know, I'm sensitive to the needs of some communities and understand that, you know, there's obviously, as you would expect, disquiet about some of the proposals. We obviously want to consider the transfer of the facilities where there is a revenue monopoly by other businesses or organizations. And we really need space to have those discussions now before we bring this back. And that's really got to be the current position. So, you know, clearly these discussions will take some time, and that's why we've put these proposals forward, and we'll bring other proposals forward early doors. Obviously, we're talking about the next year's budget before, quite considerably before that budget process and budget setting. They are, you know, long lead items. They'll take a lot of discussion to deal with. So, yeah, no doubt there is an impact, Councillor Cushing, but we're trying to look at the facilities that have the highest cost, the lowest usage, or are logically they should be being maintained by third parties. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll wait to see those proposals. Thank you, Madam.
Just to obviously say it's going to the Avian Scrutiny Committee next, so we will be looking for suggestions from the committee, and certainly in respect of other budgetary savings, which sadly, you know, we will have to make. The government isn't coming over the hill to save us, I don't think. So we are where we are at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we need to approve these. And because they're very different topics, we thought we should take them separately. So we'll first of all, we'll approve Cabinet Agenda Item 11, parts 1 and 2.
I think it's proposed in second, so we want to vote on it.
Okay, so just vote. Yes, okay, take a vote. All those in favour? Looks unanimous to me. Lovely. And now we will have to approve Cabinet Agenda Item 12, the public conveniences. And has that been proposed? Has been globally. Okay, lovely. So we need to take a vote on that. Who's in favour? Lovely. And who's against?
Eleven.
11. Okay, that's right, isn't it? Thank you very much. Okay.
Abstentions.
Any abstentions? That I don't think there can be because there are 29 people here. Good. So now we move on to the recommendation from the two overview and scrutiny committees, 17th of July and the 20th of September, and we have different chairs for those meetings. So first of all, the 17th of July. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The recommendations are set out on both those pages. I really would like to just spend a little time, if I may, just to explain the context of the first recommendation, that of the East of England Ambulance Service Trust. Those members who have followed the business of the committee for some time will know that we have tracked the performance of the trust in respect of response times, particularly to the more rural parts of our district. We've worked with the Norfolk Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee on this topic as well. So we've taken a county-wide, or we've engaged in their conversations with the trust. And those of you will know that the trust itself has been under close scrutiny from the Care Quality Commission for quite some time for a number of problems. But just bringing it back to the response times in North Norfolk, I think it's fair to say that we as a district council have very little influence over some of the major drivers that are behind that. And some of you will know that those drivers are the blocking of beds at the hospital and the delays that are incurred with ambulances not being able to offload and so on and so forth. So they are well beyond the reach of our committee and this council, but it's right that we should express our views, and we have done so. What the meeting on the 17th of July focused on was more, what could we do, what can be done to perhaps mitigate some of the adverse impact of those poor response times whilst they are being addressed at a higher level. So we had the trust, and we had the Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service attend that meeting to explain what they were doing, and where there was a discussion around co-responding from the Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service and how they're contributing to the capacity to respond to medical episodes which would justify or require an intervention within the golden hour. And that also took us on to the community first responders and the role that they perform across the district. And the value of the community first responders, I think, for those of you who know how they work, is immense. And what we focused on was, how can we as a council perhaps add to the capacity or support the community first responders? So what you see there in terms of those items that are set out. So we recommend to the council that we request the Ambulance Trust to provide the mapping details of community first responders in North Norfolk to establish where any gaps in the numbers of volunteers are. And second, to provide communication materials for members of the council to use when talking to their respective parish and town councils about the co-responding and the role of community first responders. The second part, so that's part B, that the council works with the Ambulance Trust to help promote its campaign on community first responders and co-responding by signposting members of the public towards the Ambulance Trust community first responders, and the website link is there. And the second part of that is to encourage members of the council to talk to their respective parish and town councils on the importance of the work being done by the community first responders, with the aim of increasing the understanding of these roles and seeking to achieve more volunteers to apply for these roles. So each of us will have our parish councils that we will visit from time to time in our wards, and there is an opportunity for us to give profile and give those parish councils and those members of the public that attend more information on what the community first responders are achieving and how perhaps they can help support the recruitment and retention and support of those community first responders across the district. And obviously the outcomes that we're looking for there is to ensure that the interventions that are appropriate for within the golden hour are brought to bear as soon as possible. Recognising that the transportation of patients to the hospital may well take some time, but the stabilisation of patients is the crucial thing that needs to happen at the earliest possible point. We tend to think about complex things like strokes and heart attacks and things of that sort. But actually, we have very simple things that happen, and we've got the winter coming, and we've got elderly people who can fall down in their drive, perhaps getting in and out of their car. They may be on their own, but not be able to get up. They're laying on the frosty ground, maybe the snow. Nobody knows they're there, perhaps, or if somebody does know they're there, how do they get help? And the condition of somebody, assuming they haven't broken any bones or done any serious harm, they will be at serious risk of hypothermia in not too long a time, and they can die just by that alone. So those kind of inventions, and that just means somebody coming along to be able to provide the necessary first aid effectively for that particular patient to survive and have a far better outcome. So I take a bit of time in explaining this because there's quite a bit of history behind it. We've been working on this for quite some time, and this is the latest update. And so I would invite the council to support that recommendation. I don't think I've got anything to add in respect of North Walsham High Street Heritage Action Zone. I wasn't present for the meeting on the 20th of September, so I think I will defer to the Vice Chairman, Councillor Saul Penfold, if he wish to report any recommendations in relation to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Yes, we don't have the recommendations written in front of us this evening from the meeting that I chaired last Friday, the 20th of September. So I'll just briefly outline the sort of main focus really of those, and you'll see those next time at full council when they are in our written papers. I mean, the focus on Friday was really around the recommendations made to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee by the Homelessness Task and Finish Group, which had been set up to look at that issue within the district. Clearly an issue of much importance to those who are suffering from homelessness and its effects, an issue that has affected us in terms of budget and how we try to tackle that. So the Task and Finish Group has been looking in great depth at those issues, and I should just say on behalf of the committee, thank you to Councillor Holliday for chairing that Task and Finish Group, to the members who were part of it, the external witnesses that the group spoke to, and indeed the Scrutiny Officer for his excellent support to that group. So we looked on Friday at the recommendations, of which there were a large number, as to how this council might work better to tackle the issue of homelessness. The group had looked at the causes of that, what's driving it across the district, and as I say, how we might alleviate it in partnership with others, whilst recognising the superb work that is already going on with officers here in this area. So I think it's probably all I want to say on that. We will have those recommendations presented to us next time. And then we can look at them perhaps in a bit more detail, but of course they will be going to Cabinet and we await that response eagerly. But thank you on behalf of ONS to the members of the Task and Finish Group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both. So we can vote on them in en bloc, I think. Yes.
So I just wanted to ask, in respect of the first recommendation around the ambulance trusts, the ambulance trust, what the chairman's expectations are in future years, because as you said, rightly, there are issues with queuing, etc., at the hospital, and previously this issue had come to the committee on occasions before, and I welcome the intervention this time. What might happen in future and what your expectations around the committee's involvement in that subject?
I think it's fair to say that the committee will want to continue to monitor the performance of the trust in the future. And it will be for the committee to decide what other interventions or actions it might want to do in the future. So I think we'd like to kind of see how the latest recommendations bed down and take a further view in the future.
Okay, can I have a proposer, please? We haven't had a proposer, have we, for these recommendations? Okay, fine. And a seconder? Councillor Vickers? Lovely. Okay, can we vote, please, on these recommendations? In favour? Yep. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's been a little while since I've given a spiel at full council. So this is on the new Procurement Act. I just want to give members an update. First of all, it was the case that the Procurement Act was going to be implemented next month. We've actually found out recently that this will now be delayed due to issues with finalising and setting up the central digital platform. So that will be implemented at some point, but we're just waiting for the technology to catch up. But we can go ahead and vote on this tonight. It's important that we get that up and running ahead of time. So just want to take you through some of the key points. You can see it on the screen as well. So this report before you tonight is NNDC responding to a new improved regulatory process for procurement. This updated act will simply simplify the process and ensure greater transparency. It makes the bidding process more efficient by introducing a central digital platform for easier access to procurement opportunities. So moving forwards, the digital process will reduce paperwork and therefore ensure ease for both the bidder and this organisation. I think just another key point I want to note to members is that the threshold requiring a single quote has been increased. Originally, this was £5,000. It's now increased to £15,000, and that's a single quote, although the quotation is required to be in writing. That just makes the process that little bit more efficient. So just summing up, really, as a council, we do need to take practical steps to ensure that we align with this new act. Our central contract procedure rules need to align with the new act and improve our procurement processes, and that will ensure better value for money, transparency, and support to local communities. And I just want to extend my thanks to the working party members who discussed this thoroughly last week, and of course our fantastic officers who have been really great in undertaking this work. So I'm more than happy to propose this, and we can move on to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, would anyone like to second it? Councillor Blanchard. Any questions? No, lovely. So proceed to the vote. All in favour? Unanimous, Lauren? Lovely. Thank you very much. Were there any questions received from members, Lauren? No. Right, so we move on to item 14, which is the opposition business item. Right, which is going to be proposed by Councillor Cushing. So we have 30 minutes for this, and I understand that then we're going to discuss the part of item 15, which is the administration's notice of motion. We're going to discuss the second half of that after the opposition business. Is that correct? Have I got the correct understanding? Because they're both on the same topic.
We're just going through the agenda, as you say, we're just discussing opposition business.
Yeah, so we are discussing the opposition motion. I just wanted to say that we're going to then discuss the administration's notice on the same topic, just for ease of subject matter, really, I guess. Anyway, so we've got 30 minutes for the opposition business. So, Councillor Cushing, would you like to propose?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Indeed, thank you, Councillor Adams. I think we discussed beforehand. I think it would be easier to group the two motions together as essentially they're covering the same territory. It's very pertinent today because at the Labour Party conference, the trade unions proposed a motion requesting that the Labour government reverse the fuel council allowance changes. So this evening, I find myself in the unaccustomed position of standing shoulder to shoulder with the trade unions and the Liberal Democrats. So anyway, but if I go back to, it's only 3 months. I mean, I recall the general election doesn't seem that long ago, and I attended the count, the Broadland and Fakenham constituency count at the Norwich Showground. And there also was counted the Norwich North and the South Norfolk constituencies, both of which were clearly run by the Labour Party. So the event was full of smiling, happy Labour activists. Well, I doubt they're smiling now. I can never recall a new government coming to power and seeing their honeymoon disappear so quickly. And is it a surprise? What we've seen so far, this is a cruel government that prioritises the needs of pickets over pensioners. And is it any wonder that people have come to solutions so quickly? Governments usually talk up their countries. And indeed, today, the OECD actually revised the UK GDP's growth from 0.4% to 1.1% this year. And that's going to be the best in the G7. All we've seen so far since this government's taken power is an all-pervading sense of doom and gloom in order to try and justify the looming massive tax hikes that Labour wanted to impose all along. This has also given rise to this fictitious 22 billion fiscal black hole. The fact that it's fictitious is demonstrated by the fact that the government will not explain actually what makes up that 22 billion pounds. Indeed, the Treasury even rejected a Financial Times Freedom of Information request for a breakdown of the details of this because it could not be sure the figures would be accurate. The only figure that we can be sure about is 9.4 billion, which was incurred by the Chancellor himself by offering public sector workers an inflation-busting pay rises. And I think all of us await with trepidation to see what she's going to reveal in the autumn statement on the 30th of October. However, the one thing we actually do know about is that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, has announced the removal of the winter fuel payment from all pensioners who do not claim pension credit. This will affect more than 10 million people and save the Treasury about 1.3 billion. Incidentally, this is the same Rachel Reeves who's claimed £3,700 of taxpayer cash towards her own energy bills in the last 5 years. To put that 1.3 billion pound in context, the government spends 12 billion pounds a year. So that figure equates to just 0.1% of all government expenditure. As stated in the motion, this will hit North Norfolk particularly hard. I've seen various estimates of the number of pensioners affected in our district, and the one I picked is the one which is quoted in the Eastern Daily Press of 25,796 who could potentially forfeit the winter fuel payment of up to £300. I'm sure I'm not the only member in this chamber tonight who's spoken to worried pensioners about the concerns about how they're going to stay warm this winter. This will hit our rural communities particularly hard. Rural housing is more likely to be older and less energy efficient, with significant proportion built before modern insulation standards were introduced. Over 70% of rural homes in the UK were built before 1980, compared to about 50% in urban areas. Rural houses have an average 49.6% energy efficiency compared to 65.5% in city centres. Many rural homes were not connected to mains gas network, with households often relying on more expensive off-grid heating sources like oil, wood, or propane gas bottles. Around 1.5 million homes in the UK rely on oil heating, with the majority located in rural areas. Heating oil in January 2020 was 54p a litre. It's now 66p, which further strains the limited financial resources of rural pensioners. Public Health England reports a 1.5% increase in excess winter deaths for every degree Celsius drop below 18 Celsius, underscoring the critical need for adequate heating. Excess winter deaths are a significant issue, with over 30,000 of these recorded each year, and a high instance in rural areas with where healthcare access is more limited. By moving it will condemn many of our older folk to uncertainty who do need the allowance over the winter period. Many of them are going to be faced with a choice of either to eat or to heat. And what will this sacrifice enable? What are they going to do with all this money?
I'm afraid we have to
Okay, I can finish that.
interrupt you because you've had your 5 minutes.
Okay.
Still
well,
interesting though. Thank you.
That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dixon, do you want to add your piece now, or do you want to speak at the end?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll reserve my right to speak after the debate. Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you, and thank you for the motion. As per the discussion before, we will be supporting the motion. And I really just wanted to explain the position we've taken on this so far. It's been, as per the report by my deputy, Councillor Wendy Fredericks earlier on, we've tried to focus on the practical solutions on this before we rightly talk about the facts of the matter and the wider political debate. As Councillor Fredericks has said, in fact, the number has increased now because I think it was about 150 when I checked in. I think it's over 160 now that we've identified. And the promotional activity of pension credit, because largely those that receive pension credit will be entitled to the winter fuel allowance, is already being worked out. In fact, I think some of the posters are already present and being distributed, as you've heard, but it will be obviously in the Outlook magazine, possibly one of the most important Outlook publications from that point of view, to try and encourage people. But as you say, it's not enough, and there will be those that are too stoic, too concerned about the process as well. It's, you know, I've helped people with pension credit applications before. It's not the worst, but it's certainly not the easiest of forms out there, and it's unfair really that we are making people do that when they certainly would be eligible after the proposed changes that I hope will be removed now. As Councillor Cushing has said, we've heard of the debate today at the Labour conference and the debates yesterday at County Hall. Yeah, we've tried to focus on the practical solutions to support our residents, and just to report back on that the staff have been doing an absolutely fantastic job, and I'm very proud of them for that, and also the work previously in terms of the benefit award and the additional benefit award to residents that you've also heard about. But it's right that we transition and focus, add additional focus to this issue now. I also wanted to touch just briefly on the petition. Obviously, it's sort of been explained before that, you know, we can't corporately decide to sign a petition, but don't know that'd be a deal breaker here. I will certainly personally commit to signing the petition myself, and encourage others to do so. So thank you for bringing this forward, and we'll give it my support. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Would any other members like to ask any questions or make a statement? Councillor Dixon, you're going to wrap up then.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I will be mercifully brief, and I welcome the comments of the leader. And I think we would all in this chamber recognise that the thrust of both these motions is substantially the same. And whilst we could speak all night about the subtle differences in approach and the minor matters that relates to this, what we should have in the forefront of our mind is the interests of our residents that are likely to be affected by this. So I'm really pleased that we are kind of coming together in that respect. So, Madam Chairman, I won't add anything more because in terms of facts, Councillor Cushing has set it out. It's set out well enough in both the motions, and there's nothing more I can add. But I hope everybody will be able to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just before Councillor Cushing sums up, given the difficulty in committing the council to sign a petition, I'm just wanting to check with Councillor Cushing that he would be happy to change the third bullet point to encourage members of the council to sign the winter fuel payment, etc., instead of the commit the council to signing.
Yes, by all means.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Cushing, would you like to sum up? Thank you.
I'll keep it again even more mercifully brief. Thank you very much, Councillor Mason, for your very positive statement. It is good that we can come together this evening on this. I think it's when, as we proceed through winter, it's going to something that's going to be very high, probably in our inboxes. We're all going to be talking to people who are concerned about this. And it is good to know that this council will be doing what it can in order to support our residents through that. And Councillor Fredericks has already stated in her report what has been the work they've been doing on the pension credit campaign. So delighted to see that, and I'm sure that will continue, and that will give at least some comfort to the residents of North Norfolk. So thank you. Hope you all support it.
Thank you. Can we now proceed to a vote? So all those in favour? Thank you very much. Are we going to? We should vote surely on the second part of your motion. Should we do that now? Or would you like to talk about the temporary accommodation costs first?
I mean, if it's okay, present the second motion first, just to keep the subjects together, and then go back to item 1 if that's okay.
That's fine with me. Everyone happy with that? Just to remind you, you have 15 minutes on each section of your motion.
I'm just waiting for it to come up on the screen. Sorry, I am really croaky, so. Okay, so if you go straight to slide 2, please. Thank you. Thank you. So our recommendations are on the screen, and as you have commented, they are quite similar, but there are subtle differences. So we believe the proposed means tested thresholds, as they are at the moment, will have a negative impact on the lives of many of the elderly residents of North Norfolk. So you can see the recommendations. I'm not going to go over them, but from the different income thresholds on the next slide, you can see from this there'll be a significant number of pensioners who will fall into the cracks and will be, as a result, very much of need of that winter fuel payment with the current means testing levels as they are. This is about equity of standards of living. Therefore, a review means testing levels is very much needed to prevent inequality in health and well-being for our older population. So how will our residents in North Norfolk be affected? in particular 33% of our local North Norfolk population who are 65 years and older. In Norfolk, 61% of the registered properties have an EPC rating of D or less. This is worse than the national average of 53%. On slide 5, you can see approximately 60,300 or 15% of households are already living in fuel poverty in Norfolk. And obviously a lot of those are going to be elderly as well. This is higher than the national average of 13% and particularly high in North Norfolk at 16.1%, with many of those in fuel poverty living in larger homes in rural areas. So significant properties of the district are the off-gas grid and therefore depend on expensive heating oil. And we've heard from Councillor Cushing how expensive that has become, or inefficient electric or solid fuel. Across Norfolk, we have the highest where over 60% are not connected to main sources and where approximately 1/3 are age 65 plus and vulnerable to cold homes. As mentioned previously, excess winter deaths in Norfolk are significantly worse than the national average, with 1,430 excess deaths between August and July 2021. Estimates suggest that some 22% of winter deaths are attributable to cold homes, which would equate to 307 deaths in Norfolk in 2020 to 21. Given North Norfolk's status as an area with the highest number of people aged 65 in the country, all of this combined will impact disproportionately on our older residents. Age UK believe an estimated 200,000 elderly people with disabilities or illness and living in inefficient energy homes will miss out on this vital winter fuel payment. They also point out that those who just miss out on pension credit because of their very modest incomes which are slightly too high, usually because of a small occupational pension. Reductions to the winter fuel allowance will therefore have a disproportionate impact on women, as well as those women whose husbands die before them, as unfortunately a lot of them do, leaving a much reduced occupational widow's pension. So we've already seen between 800,000 and 1 million people who are eligible for pension credit do not currently claim this benefit. It's great we're doing what we're doing, but as a result, this will mean many elderly people in the country will be pushed further into fuel poverty, and all the negative connotations which have been highlighted have a detrimental impact on their lives. As part of the Prevent agenda being promoted by this and the previous government in North Norfolk, we should be looking to reduce the impact of cold on a sector of our population susceptible to cold home-related ill health. I urge the Council, therefore, to support our request to Government for an urgent review of the means testing levels for the winter fuel payment scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I can reserve, thank you.
Okay, so
I'll come in again, why not? I just wanted to say that regardless of these changes, I think there's a role for government departments in ensuring we have as much data as is reasonable in helping to identify people that are eligible for pension credit in any case. And in the case of other benefits, I mean, you might say, well, we're being a bit parochial in saying that because yes, the people residents will spend the money here at North Norfolk, and that's certainly a fact, and it's beneficial. But you know, you're helping to sustain households and avoid falling into situations of debt insustainability, of not being able to cover household finances and all sorts of other scenarios where it's made as easy as possible to ensure that people are receiving their benefit entitlement. Our offices have had meetings with the Department of Work and Pensions and made that observation. So you know, we do work well with the Department of Work and Pensions, and I think that's just demonstrated in spades quite frequently. It was throughout the pandemic. It was in the recent reports we've seen about benefit receipt, and I think we need to always make that work as easy as possible in the future, regardless of quite shocking proposals like this brought forward by the government. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Shaz.
I just want to make a plea to our residents, really. I've had conversations over the past few weeks with residents who have found it quite tricky to put their pride aside, who've worked incredibly hard their whole lives and are now facing a winter where they're having to make really difficult choices. I just want to urge anybody who may be watching, however small the audience is, to please come forward or find somebody in their little trusted circle to have the conversation with about what heating their home looks like this winter, whether or not it's the pension credits conversation or whether or not it's people who need a little bit of help with extra shopping or anything that can be offered. Please do come forward. I can't bear the thought of our residents sitting alone at home, cold over the winter months.
I think you're absolutely fine. Thank you, Chair. I think everything that's been said, I echo. I also want to echo Councillor Shire's plea as well. Look, don't be cold, don't be hungry. Contact the council. We have a help hub here. We have social prescribers here. We have teams that will be able to help you, and the financial inclusion team can look at uplifting your benefits or finding other means in vouchers, energy vouchers. So yes, it's going to be a lot of work for our district council to combat what is happening in our communities. I also want to turn that on our members, because it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to be present in your communities. It's your responsibility to help these people. That pension credit form is 200 questions long. It's not our form, it's the government's form. So speaking about my parents, there's no way they could do that. So please, it's not just them, it's us. We're a community. We do our jobs because we care about people. Our officers get up every day and do their jobs because they care for people. So if there is press watching, hello press. I would like to invite you to have a chat with me about how we can get this message out, because being cold and hungry in a first world country is not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Withington, do you want to sum up? Okay, let's proceed to a vote then. Everyone in favour? Okay, so let's now move to item 15, part 1. And we have a proposer. We've got so many forms today. So, Councillor Fredericks, do you want to propose?
Thank you, Chair. The motion is to ask for a letter to be sent by NNDC to our 2 MPs, the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. There are several reasons why people find themselves homeless. The top 3 here are domestic abuse, end of private rent, and family and friends are no longer to be able to accommodate the person. This is not a refugee issue in North Norfolk. This is about our friends and our neighbours, people who live and work in North Norfolk. They're all seeking one thing, so we're safe with the long-term security to rebuild their lives. Imagine if that was you or a loved one. Our customer service team, prevention team, housing team, social prescribers, benefits team, financial inclusion team, and more than I can mention, will help anyone regardless of the huge cost to the council if they need support and are eligible for help. This is our moral and legal duty. We never know how many people will present to us every day. It's our duty to help them find a bed until we can work out a more permanent home. The financial costs of placing a family in nightly paid accommodation for a week is between £350 and £632 a week. We receive from the government £98, and this is based on the 2011 90% of local housing allowance. The shortfall is then taken by council taxpayers and the council to find money from other budgets. In 2023-24, we spent nearly £1.3 million on nightly paid accommodation. The government paid us £334,000. We had to find the shortfall of around £861,000. I believe if we hadn't bought our own homes for temporary accommodation, which is 26 homes we've bought so far, our bill would be nearly double. This is the position of councils up and down the country, some using as much as 50% of their overall budget on nightly paid temporary accommodation. Placing a family in our own temporary accommodation could mean an income from rent and fully covered subsidy by a housing benefit by £180 a week. This issue and the cost of living has emptied our financial cupboard. Being able to afford the day-to-day legal required services, for example, environmental health, planning, waste collection, stuff like that, is incredibly difficult, let alone the non-statutory services like we were discussing earlier, toilets, community services. That is nigh on impossible. This is why we are continuing to lobby the government. DULUC came to see us in March this year, and we outlined our challenges and talked about possible solutions, but we haven't heard from them and since then. However, since the issues remain, building more affordable homes is the priority of the new government, but there is no indication where the money is coming from to do this. We are doing everything we can. Every avenue is explored. We are nationally highlighted through the award-winning work we do with our partners on exception sites. The Housing Strategy team were asked to present their work to the Royal Network Services Conference last week. Many councils have been in contact with us about how we do it and how they can do it. We've pulled every lever available to us to bring forward more affordable homes to our district. So we are asking the government again to come and see us with solutions to our challenges. Making tough choices between keeping non-statutory services and putting a roof over a family's head is something we have to consider. It's not a place we want to be for our staff or our residents. Please support this motion I bring before you tonight.
Thank you.
I'll reserve my right to speak.
Okay, lovely. Councillor Dixon.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. It's really a comment. Bearing in mind that this is already work in progress, isn't it? This is part of discussions that have gone on already with DULUC and whatever they call themselves now. So I guess I'm a little bit just surprised that it's necessary to kind of bring a motion to full council to do what I would consider to be the next stage of what I would regard as, if you like, routine business. But perhaps there are those that will put me right on why the protocol needs a motion to full council, because the merit in the argument is pretty obvious. So yeah, just
I can take that one. So the department came to see us in March because of the lobbying that I had done and together with this council. I would like all members' support on this because last time they come, we were ridiculed. And I won't have that again because we are all in this together and we are all facing this crisis together. So I would like all of your support. And that includes the MPs this time. Thank you.
Thank you. At 8 o'clock this morning, my morning didn't quite start as I intended. I received a phone call from a resident of Sheringham who overnight they had been out of the area to go and collect their 83-year-old mother who had had to flee domestic violence and been quite badly beaten up. So they attended hospital, and then the first thing they did was ring me this morning. They've been in contact with our amazing housing team, who unfortunately could only offer a hotel room outside Cringleford in Norwich. So that was problematic. But we have, however, in our community, managed to resolve that issue on a temporary basis. And I know that NNDC will come up with something, but it will be a cost to this council. She's not an unusual situation. Those of us who are really working in our communities are aware of this happening, and it is a big part of the work that we do. Domestic abuse, domestic violence, coercion, they are main trigger points in bringing forward people who need temporary accommodation. We had no idea that that was going to happen today. As Councillor Frederick said, we don't have that, view that we'll get 3 this week or 2 next week or what have you. We don't know what's coming around the corner. We are working on those issues that we can to try and prevent it from happening. But it is a huge issue for us, and it has a huge impact, not just on the people who are fleeing, but their families. It puts pressure on other resources, etc. So, I do think we need to stand as a council together on this one and really take it to the government, what the impact it's having and how we just can't keep doing it.
Thank you very much. Anyone else care to contribute? Or was that we haven't got any other members wanting to speak. So would the seconder like to, you said, sorry.
I gladly will. It probably makes a change for me to not talk about the financial implications. Members hear that every time I bring a budget item. You heard it for the entirety of the last financial year. So I thank Councillor Fredericks for taking up the mantle on just showing us the true financial cost. This is more than how much it's costing us. We can't stop doing this. We have a legal responsibility to house our residents. And that has been an uncomfortable conversation for many people. I wish to thank Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the Task and Finish Group for the work that they did. But this is probably far more uncomfortable that we're having to have this conversation again publicly than it is the uncomfortable conversations I'll be presenting in future months about the cost of our budget, about the decisions that we're going to have to make because the current government are not funding this properly. And it's not just our budget line. We know that there's an educational disruption to children who have been homeless. It's a significant challenge. The frequent moves mean they're not in schools. The county council's budget to move children around the county doesn't stretch far enough every time a family's moved. How can a child concentrate in school when they don't know where they're going to be sleeping tonight? They don't have their comforts around them. So attendance is often an issue. But unfortunately, our homeless children are more likely to experience bullying, have lower grades, and develop behavioural issues. So it's not just our budget, it's the county council budget that this matter affects. And until the government fund it properly, it's going to continue to affect everybody's budget. The health consequences of homelessness, there are severe physical and mental health impacts. Families living in temporary accommodation are often overcrowded, or they're living in substandard conditions, increasing the risk of illnesses. Poor nutrition and limited access to healthcare make these health problems worse. But for our children, again, the long-term stress of homelessness can really lead to developmental delays, anxiety and depression. It's not just our budget, it's the NHS's budget as well. And until the government fund it properly, we're going to continue to have these issues. The emotional and social impact of homelessness often leads to social isolation. People withdraw from our communities and their social networks. This, combined with the stigma of being homelessness, affects self-esteem and creates a cycle of marginalisation where families find it difficult to reintegrate. There's an economic strain. So when families are homeless, they find it difficult to regain any financial stability. They face job insecurity and the inability to maintain a permanent address or arrange reliable childcare. The lack of financial security can persist long after they found housing, leading to a long-term reliance on public support systems. This affects the government's budget. And until the government fund this properly, all levels of government are going to continue to be affected by this problem. So whilst I have presented the financial issues time and time again, this is a real North Norfolk issue. It's a national issue, and I hope members can support this motion in bringing the government here so that we can plead our individual case for North Norfolk.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fredericks, would you like to sum up?
I think everything has been said by Councillor Shires. I have to reiterate that when Dulux come to see us, they were absolutely wonderful, really lovely team, and they were bowled over by everything that we are trying to do to combat our housing crisis. We showed them one of our completed schemes. They couldn't have been more surprised. So I would really hope that they come back and see us and have another conversation now that the government has changed. There might be some different avenues we could find. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So can we now go to the vote? All those in favour? Yep, unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. So moving on to item 16, exclusion of press and public. Nothing to discuss there. Any item 17, private business?